Yeah, that's amazing. I like this. I'm going to say,
Hello again and welcome back to In Search of 42. Are you ready to join me on this journey to find the answer to life, the universe, and everything? This week, Evan Sukman joins me on a quest for career satisfaction. Have you ever felt stuck in a career rut, yearning for a path that truly challenges and excites you? Well, Evan Sukman, once a management consultant, did too. But instead of settling, he took the hard road, leaping into the world of entrepreneurship as a career coach. In this episode, Evan pulls back the curtain on his inspiring journey, revealing the power of seeking challenges, the transformational impacts of coaching, and the thrilling yet sometimes terrifying roller coaster of being your own boss. Evan not only shares actionable tips for anyone seeking career clarity with us, but also his personal story of overcoming fear and embracing personal growth. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay tuned for more inspiring stories like Evan's. And share this episode with one friend this week who should hear Evan's story. Remember, the more people we can reach, the more people we can help. Now, are you ready to take your own hard road to success? Reach out to Evan or myself for personalized coaching and take your first step towards a more fulfilling and meaningful career. But let's get all this gobbledygook out of the way and get right into my conversation with Evan Sukman.
All right, Evan. Nice to see you on here. I'm really thankful for you taking the time to do this. So let's get right into it. Evan, who are you?
it is a great question. So yeah, my name is Evan Sukman. I'm a career coach. I launched my coaching business a handful of months ago and have been getting going since then. I help corporate professionals transition their careers, particularly those who, are maybe overwhelmed with decision anxiety, don't really know what the best next move is for them. My thing is helping them navigate that and then taking the leap into the career that they really want.
That's fascinating. That's a very interesting opportunity, I'm sure, for you to deal with some really powerful people who are really trying to make a difference in their own careers. So how did you end up doing this? What was your path to get to this point in your life?
Another great question. Yeah, so I worked in management consulting for the last few years. That was my first job out of school. I went to Ivy Business School at Western, the business program there, and really enjoyed that. Ended up starting my career in consulting, which is a pretty competitive field. I was really excited to get started in it. And while I was at school, there was kind of like 4 different paths that we were given. There was the consulting path, there was the finance and investment banking path, there was accounting, and there was marketing. Those are the 4 kind of routes that people would go down. And of these 4, I was like, you know what? I think consulting works the best for me. So that's what I launched towards. And that was my big goal. I was lucky enough to land a position. And but shortly after I started, I kind of realized, okay, you know what? I don't know if this position is the best thing for me long term. I feel like there's something else out there for me that might fit a little bit better. And I started exploring what that would be. It took me a while to sort through the available options, think about what I actually wanted for my life and where I saw myself long term, what some of those goals were, what I was okay with compromising and what I wasn't. And then about 2 years later, I left my job, decided that entrepreneurship was the route for me and that I was going to figure it out. And that's when I came across coaching here. And while kind of putting together my offer and seeing what kind of value I could offer the world, I realized that there are so many people who were going through this same journey that I was. And I now look back and while, you might say, okay, 25-year-old career coach, what do you know about career or whatever? I've only got 3 years of experience, right? But I know that I've done all of this thinking. It was my number one priority outside of work. I didn't have too much time outside of my busy consulting job. But when I had time, I was thinking about, okay, what should I do? How should I approach it? Applying to jobs, thinking about MBA, thinking about entrepreneurship, etc. So I've gone down all these paths, and now I know that I can at least guide people who are maybe further back in that journey than I am now at my position and help bring them forward and take them from maybe it's a 2 out of 10 to a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Right. No, I mean, it's definitely a very important tool to use. And I'm sure if you had a coach back in the day when you were trying to make this decision for yourself, your life path would have been very different. So I'm kind of curious. So consulting and coaching, there are some parallels there. We're trying to help other people make better decisions, but consulting and coaching take a very different approach to it. So what was it when you were in school that drew your attention to consulting at that time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I liked the client facing work. I liked interacting with people in a professional sense and, delivering presentations, communicating clearly. Those were all things that I was always interested in. So I knew that consulting had access to it and was a great way to get experience on that front. So that was one of the things that drew me towards it. On top of that, like the challenging work environment, I always considered myself, at least, in high school and university, while I was a pretty successful student, I had this kind of interior identity of like being somebody who was a bit of a procrastinator. I put things off to the last minute. A lot of people are, right? But part of it was like I wanted to hammer this out of myself and develop a really strong work ethic. And I knew that consulting was going to be grueling and demanding enough to where I felt like it would give me that. So that was a big thing. On top of that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do long term. And consulting, you get one of the big appeals of it is you get to dip your toes into a whole bunch of different industries, a whole bunch of different types of projects. So that was something that really attracted me. But like you say, there's a lot of parallels between consulting and coaching. It's essentially the same kind of thing, except consulting, you're working with organizations. It's more of a business consulting sort of thing. Whereas coaching, you're working with individuals and you're more so dealing with like personal problems as opposed to business oriented problems. That's kind of the main way I would characterize it. But I don't know, you could just as easily call me a consultant right now, a career consultant, right? The word doesn't really mean that much, but in a lot of ways, yeah, like you say, the function of what I'm doing is similar now.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something very interesting that you said, and that is that you were seeking out challenges. You were trying to find what's, almost like what's the hardest thing for me to do, and that's fascinating because there's a lot of people out there who take the opposite approach. What's the easiest way for me to get to where I want to go? And you decided I want to take the hard route. So where does that mindset come from within you? Where did that start? What sparked that? I want to take the hard road.
That is a great question. Where does that come from? I think, I don't know if this is the perfect answer, but I want to say that it was from my experience with sports in childhood. I think that's where it kind of started, where I realized that when I pushed myself and when I did hard things, there was rewards to that. I was a goalie in hockey. That was my big thing when I was growing up. I played pretty seriously from like the age of 8 to 18, I would say, till the end of high school. And I always loved a challenge. I think I got a lot of like social validation from the challenge, making a big save or like putting in a lot of effort and people patting me on my back and stuff. I think that's kind of when it started to be ingrained in me that challenge equals good. And I just found it to be a lot of fun too, like overcoming obstacles, the hero's journey. That's something we're all attracted to in movies. I always love that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess it's something that I had always taken for granted. I know a lot of people haven't built that or don't have it maybe as innately as I did, but I'm now very grateful that I've had that. And that's been a big reason for my pursuing this challenging career route again, of entrepreneurship. It would have been pretty easy for me to stay in my consulting job and take my cushy salary. And sure, maybe there were downsides, but there's a lot of pros. But there was something in me that wanted to continue chasing out challenging situations. And this was the best one that I could find for myself now.
Yeah, what I was just thinking about, just even thinking back to a lot of the conversations that I've had with other people, some on the podcast and some offline. It seems like a lot of people who have that same mindset of I need to seek out challenging situations have a history in some kind of sport, whether that's hockey in your case or soccer or football. And so it's the chicken or the egg came first question. Is it the sport that instilled that in you, or did you seek out the sport because you were looking for these challenging situations, right? becomes this philosophical principle. But where do you stand on that? Do you think you had it before you went into sports, or do you think the sports is what instilled it in you?
It's a good question. I think I got to thank my parents at some point along this journey, because they pushed me to get into sports and into hockey. For a while, I didn't love hockey. I used to be a forward from the age of my dad was a big hockey player, so he got me into it early, and I was maybe playing from the age of 5 to 9, and I didn't love it. It was okay. I was mostly I think just doing it for him in some ways. Of course, I enjoyed parts of it, but maybe not quite enough to really be excited to get out there. But when I tried becoming a goalie, that's when things changed for me, and I really, really loved that. So I think that in a way, I would say one integral part of that chicken and the egg dynamic was my parents pushing me towards that, which I'm grateful for, and then keeping me sticking with it. But also, I think I have one thing that I've reflected on, what's guided my now career path, is my innate calling, which is kind of a big thing to wrap your head around, and it's something I help people think about in my program. It's something that Robert Greene talks about in his book Mastery, which is, what is the one string that you can connect all of your different life experiences through? And for me, that string is self-direction. I've always been really interested in doing what I wanted to do. My mom tells me that straight out of the womb, that was my dominant personality trait. It was just I always knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I had to do that thing. I think a lot of kids are like that to a certain extent, but and I think that part of that was seeking novelty and excitement and just something new to wrap my head around. I needed to keep my mind occupied. So I think there's a part of that which was nature for me. I came out of the womb looking for challenges and excitement. And there's probably some genetics that I need to thank my parents for that. But then also, they did a great job of nurturing that in me and ensuring that I stayed on that path. And now I've been glad that I'm still on that path 25 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that truly is a kudos to your parents, because I think, like you said, kids are naturally curious, and they obviously want to find their own place in this world. And there's at some point, whether the parents don't know that they need to nurture it, or simply don't understand that piece themselves, it sort of falls by the wayside. And I think that's where us as adults then lose the direction that we're looking for, because that was never instilled or nurtured in any way in us. So truly kudos to your parents. So then on your journey then for yourself, right? You did consulting for a few years, but you wanted something else. You wanted something more. How did you find coaching? Because that's a big thing, right? How does someone make the decision to find out what coaching is, and who the right coach is then for them? How did that work for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's an important kind of detail in my story that I glossed over a little bit. So I'm glad you're double clicking on that. So at the start of last year, January of 2023, I had been in my job for almost 2.5 years, and I knew that I wasn't loving it, and I knew I just needed to pull the plug. So I made a deal with myself that, okay, by the end of March, I had to be out. I had to have something figured out, regardless of whether I had a business that was giving me enough money to live off of, or if I just had nothing going. I knew I had to be out. So I got to the end of March. I didn't have much going for myself on the side. I had a couple little ideas, but I hadn't been executing how I wanted to. And I just decided to pull the plug and handed in my 2 weeks notice towards the end of March. And beginning of April, I was out on my own. So at that time, the big thing that I was launching towards was actually YouTube automation. I'm not sure if you've heard of this concept.
No, not YouTube
Familiar
automation. I mean, obviously I'm
okay.
using YouTube, but not the automation part.
Yep. Fair enough. So YouTube automation is a business model that I got pretty interested in. And the concept is you're running a YouTube channel like a business, and making it all faceless. So you're not the face behind the brand. You're outsourcing all of the different pieces of the video creation process. So script writing, hiring video editors, somebody to stitch the video together, somebody to do the audio and do a voiceover, and then you're pulling it all together. You're creating the strategy for the channel. Okay, this is the videos that we should make. This is what people are going to like, etc. So I got the idea of doing using AI to do all that, because I realized, okay, AI tools, you can kind of stitch that all together. Maybe my thing is just pumping out so much volume, eventually something catches, and I can just do it very efficiently. So that's what I started launching towards. I did that for a few weeks at the start of April, and it wasn't really getting much traction. I wasn't happy with the way that it was going, and I decided to pivot. And part of this was I knew I wanted to actually be on YouTube myself. That's deep down what I really wanted to do, but obviously it's a scary thing, right? To put yourself out there like that. So I was just holding back from doing that. And I realized, okay, you know what? Let me do this. I'm going to put the camera on and start talking on YouTube. So that's exactly what I did. And I did that for another month. Meanwhile, a bit of a side note, the YouTube automation channel that I started popping off and getting a lot of views, which was kind of funny. I was like, well, okay, I guess I kind of got to keep that going too. But that was a really fun adventure. And along the way, I made a couple of connections with people who had started their own YouTube channels. People from my network kind of like, oh, somebody noticed I was doing this thing. You got to talk to this guy, blah, blah, blah. He had just started his own channel. And I connected with one old friend of mine who he had started working with a coach to help him grow his YouTube and to help him build this personal brand. So he was like, oh man, you got to work with this guy. He's going to help you solve your problems. He's got all the solutions. And I started working with him. My biggest problem at the time was I was just scared of like putting myself out there, really. I was making YouTube channels in the dark. Nobody knew what I was doing. Just my parents and my brother were the ones that knew what I was doing. I was scared of like telling the world like, hey, I'm going for this. And he really shifted my mindset on that front and put me on a better path and got me a lot more comfortable with being myself in front of the people that I knew, really. That was the big thing for me. And that was a really, really transformative experience. And that's when I discovered this concept of coaching. And I realized that this was actually a business model that I could possibly use to generate an income. And I realized that it's perfectly suited for my skills and what I wanted to do. When you're on YouTube, you're basically coaching everybody, but it's a one-way relationship, right? At least in the self-development kind of niche that I wanted to operate in. So instead of coaching 10 people on a group call or whatever, you're aiming to coach 100,000 people 10 minutes a week, right? One-sided. That's kind of how it works. So I realized, hey, this is the same thing, except it's on a much smaller scale, and I can have a much bigger impact. So on individuals, right? As opposed to 10 minutes per week, you're interacting with them for multiple hours per week. You're going under the hood. You're making real tangible changes for them. So that's when I kind of got onto the side of coaching, and I started putting together my offer and thinking about what I could possibly do. And then, I joined Paul's program, and you and I met in there, and the rest is history. Now here I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the, for your own coaching experience, for people who have never had a coaching experience, what's been the most transformational aspect for yourself?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is having somebody that like really truly has your back and has enough knowledge about their field to like give you the stamp of approval that what you're doing is good. When you're navigating waters that you're not familiar with, be it starting a business or creating a personal brand or whatever it is, you don't know what you don't know. You know that you're totally new to this, and there's all sorts of variables that exist out there. And you don't know what's good and what's not and how to properly navigate it. So just having somebody who has experience to give you the stamp of approval to say, yes, this thing that you are considering doing, that is the right thing. You should do that. That's pretty transformative because it gives you a different level of confidence and certainty that this is the right thing. I think that's the biggest transformation that I felt. And what I kind of realized sometimes is maybe there was an action I was considering taking, posting a video or something like that in the earlier days that I was uncertain about. And just having somebody to bounce that off of and share that uncertainty with, to just have them say, no, you're being silly. That's obviously you should just post it. People are going to like this, even if they don't, who cares or whatever. Right. Just having a voice like that, helps you slowly internalize this confidence and certainty a little bit more, to where now I've built all that up, and I'm much better at like self-coaching now, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of the metaphor that came to mind is, even if you are a very experienced ship captain and you've been through the same areas in the same ports for years and years and years, there are still pilot navigators that come on board to help you navigate those local areas, because sometimes the seas change a little bit. The ground underneath the water shifts. There's obstacles that you may not have known about that have changed since the last time you've been there. And that's kind of what a coach is, right? You're still the captain of your own ship. You're still driving that ship, but you have someone there as a guide to help you navigate some of these obstacles, even if you're in familiar territory. So that's actually quite powerful. So stepping for you to step out of an employed position into your own business, your own entrepreneurial journey, what was that like? Have you ever done this before? This is your first time as an entrepreneur, and tell us about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an interesting one. I had wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time. I knew, actually, shortly after signing my offer letter for my consulting job, which was at the beginning of my 4th year of school, and then I started about a year later. I had a year to think about it. Throughout that time, I started thinking about, okay, is this going to be forever? Am I going to want to be in this position forever? The answer I came to was like, probably not. And then it was like, what do I do instead? And I did a personal finance course at where we were thinking about our entire life, financial planning for our entire life. And I started thinking about like retirement and things. And I was like, hey, what would I even do if I was retired? If I had, maybe a couple million in the bank or whatever, and I could just sit on the beach. I thought to myself, I'd probably just want to start a business. That would be like a really exciting challenge that I'd be excited about chasing towards. So then I kind of thought to myself, like, why don't I just do that now? If that's really what I would want to do, if I had, if money was no object, what's really stopping me from doing this now? My expenses are low. I'm still living at home here with my parents, which I'm very grateful for. It's given me a lot of flexibility. And now's the time when I'm young and I don't have that many responsibilities, no kids or anything like that, right? To make this kind of leap. So that's the kind of thinking that I started getting myself into. But along that, I would kind of, second guess myself here and there. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe I should, pursue my MBA or just get a different consulting job, something like that. I went down these different thought patterns where for a couple of years of my few years in consulting, I never really was seriously pursuing entrepreneurship. I was more so just thinking like, okay, one day we'll do that one day. And it wasn't until the last maybe year where I took it a little bit more seriously. And I was using the free time that I had as much as I could, the energy that I had after work and on the weekends and things to, brainstorm some entrepreneurial ideas and launch some little things. I did a whole bunch of research on various different ideas, tried to rationalize them, started a couple little things here and there that, weren't that successful and weren't that exciting. But in hindsight, I probably know that I could have made them work if I had pushed a little bit harder. But my heart wasn't fully in them. And I didn't have quite enough conviction that this was the thing for me to do with my time and my career to justify like giving the limited energy that I had towards it. But that being said, I kind of ended up realizing that for me personally and where I was at, I had enough savings to where I could buy myself some time and figure it out. And I was having a hard time devoting the, call it an hour a day that I had free outside of my demanding job to starting something, side hustle or whatever. And the time on my weekends where, that was kind of my time to maintain my relationships and, take care of my health and things like that. It's hard to find enough time to push hard enough to make anything work. So I realized, for me, I just have to pull the plug and make that jump. It's probably the most risky and like uncertain way to approach that because you're completely venturing into uncharted waters, almost as if it's like jumping into the deep end when you don't know how to swim, and trying to figure it out. So it was really challenging, and it was really hard to work up the courage, I think, to pull that plug and make the leap. But now in hindsight, sure, I did some additional kind of stumbling around and learning how to swim there. But now I look back and I'm really, really glad that I did it. I almost wish I did it sooner.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the one thing, the one message that most coaches will say is, I wish I had found coaching sooner. I wish I had done this sooner, right? It's that always comes about when you talk about something related to coaching. But so you're on your own now. You're an entrepreneur that comes with its own set of challenges. I mean, that's it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, and especially growing a coaching business in today's world is especially hard. So, what for other coaches who might be listening to this, what is the biggest advantage to doing this on your own? What can people look forward to, and also maybe what is the biggest pitfall that people should be aware of, and how they might be able to avoid that by going off on their own into their own entrepreneurial journey, creating their own coaching practice?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, like you say, there's definitely a lot of pros to being on your own. And it was honestly an experience that I was trying to optimize for, an experience that I was looking for, this like solopreneur dynamic. I liked everything being on my shoulders, me being in total control of everything, and all of the responsibility being on me. So yeah, I saw that as being more of a pro than a con, but it definitely comes with some cons. I mean, there's the dynamic of like, nobody's holding your feet to the fire. Nobody's coming to save you, right? You have no boss telling you what to do. You have no guidance. You have no like, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. It's completely 100% up to you. So if you're not ready for that uncertainty and the information overload associated with that, it's probably not going to work out well for you. Luckily, I was in a position where, like I say, I had to develop this work ethic and discipline that I was able to keep myself on this structured routine that gave me some element of certainty around what I was doing. And I'm, I guess, proficient enough in business and things to where I know how to think about whether I'm being successful and whether the actions are creating the results that I want. But along that, I've gotten help from coaches myself, right? And I would say that's been absolutely essential to my journey, because just inevitably, wherever you are and whatever you want to do, I think you'd agree with this as well, there's somebody out there who's been there and who is now helping people get to that same place. So, I mean, there's no chance that getting somebody like that to help you through that journey is ever going to hurt you. The only question is it going to be worth your time enough to justify the cost that's associated with it, both in terms of your time and the money that it would cost, right? But for a lot of people, the changes that they actually want to experience, when you isolate them from the financial cost, like they're so incredibly valuable that it's just a no-brainer in my mind, right? Where I'm like, sure, if I, like you say, back a couple years ago when I knew that I wanted to exit my job, and I was having trouble doing so, and I didn't know what the best route for me was, if I had somebody like me now helping me through that journey, the value of that is like, it would have saved me 2 years, right? It would have saved me 2 years of stumbling around and thinking, oh, should I do this? Should I not do that? How do I think about this? It would have saved me 2 years of my life. What is that 2 years of my life worth? That's a tough thing to quantify, but I can guarantee you it's worth more than whatever the coach is probably going to charge you, right? You can't really put a value on time, because that's the one thing that is totally finite for us that we're never going to get back, right? You can always make more money. You can never make more time. You're only going to be 23, 24, 25 once. And if you don't do it right, and if you don't do what's best for you, you're going to look back and, wish that you had just invested whatever the cost was in order to do that. So anyways, I feel like I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's all to say, yeah, I like the solopreneur life. I enjoy having full responsibility and having everything be on me, being in full control of my days, not having anybody telling me what to do, knowing that I'm doing things that are going to produce the results that I want. But the biggest downside is, yeah, you don't have anybody cracking the whip over you. You don't have anybody that you report to. And that can produce a state of comfort, I think, for a lot of people that results in them not taking enough action in the way that they need to. They can just kind of sit there and be like, you know what, okay, life is all right now. I'm just going to sit on the couch and relax. I don't need to go out and generate more leads or, get new clients and deliver value to them or whatever. I can kind of just sit here and, you know, cross my fingers and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. The other interesting part that you mentioned is that people have always been in your position before, right? And what I was thinking about was, I mean, take Elon Musk as an example, right? He really started making money through PayPal, and if you think about it, people have always had a ways of exchanging money. PayPal was just one of the first ways we did it on the internet because the internet didn't exist beforehand. Now we have the internet, so PayPal really wasn't all that innovative if you think about it, because we already had ways of exchanging money through credit cards or checks or cash. This was just one of the first ways we did it on the internet. Same with Tesla. He's not the first person to build a car. He's just the first person to make it electric. SpaceX, right? We have known how to send rockets out into space for decades before he ever did that. So even someone as successful as Elon Musk really is stepping into the footsteps of the people that have been there before him, and that's one of the big values of coaching, is having someone who's been in your shoes before, who's walked that path before, who knows how to guide you along a better way. And your thoughts there are the same as mine and many of the other coaches I've spoken with. I wish I had found this sooner because it would have cost me so much less time to get to where I am today, to finally end up in a place where I'm happy, I have meaning, I have satisfaction with what I do. So, speaking of coaching now, what is the kind of coaching you do? Who do you coach? How do you help them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So my main offering right now is what I call the Career Clarity Program. It's designed to get people from the point A of, okay, I don't love my job. I know that there's something better out there for me. I don't know what that next best thing is. Sure, I've got some options that are on my plate, but it's tough for me to sort through them. I'm in this state of, just feeling stuck because I'm not super confident. And I don't have a lot of conviction that this next move is the best next move for me. That point A to the point B of, okay, now I'm exactly 100% certain as to what the best next move is for me and why that's the best next move for me to make. Getting very clear on that why to give them the fuel that they need to go through the hard times that they will likely incur along that path. And then getting them to this point of, okay, now I have a clear action plan. I know how to execute this. I know what I need to do in order to make that a reality, and helping them through those first action steps to making that a reality and eventually producing that change that they're looking for. That's my big thing. Who it's kind of targeted for is, those people that exist in that psychographic of like, okay, don't love my job, want something else. But I'd say generally kind of younger professionals, not necessarily because I don't believe I can't help older professionals, but I understand that, I'm somebody with 3 years of experience in the consulting field. It's probably a little bit more difficult for maybe somebody 10 years my senior to trust somebody like me with helping them navigate that. So more out of necessity, I kind of tailor my offering towards the people who maybe can look up to me as an authority figure. And those are generally the people who are a couple years into their career, a year into their career, kind of realized, okay, maybe this isn't the best thing for me. What should that next move be?
Yeah, and I can so relate to that. I mean, I went into medicine really for all the wrong reasons, and I wish I would have had a better guide by my side back when I made that move, over 20 years ago, because my life would have been vastly different. And what my true desires were, sort of were shut down and pushed under the rug, and I never even got to really speak about what I truly wanted. It was always about what other people thought I should do. And I think having a good coach by your side to help you with those decisions, especially early on in your career when you really haven't dedicated a whole lot of time into the field yet, is so important, because like you said, we don't get time back. So who cares if you make a huge change in your career trajectory and you do something entirely different, right? If whatever you're doing right now is not giving you the meaning and the satisfaction you desire, if you're miserable at your job, if you're burned out by your career, and you're looking for something better, absolutely, seek out the help of a coach to get that clarity for yourself, someone like Evan, so that you can find a better path forward, because you don't know how much time you have left, and why spend that in misery. So no, I applaud your efforts there. I think that is wonderful. The other thought I had was, I can understand why you're going for the younger professionals once early in their career, because that's you, right? I get that, but age is only a number, and definitely, at least from my experience, I mean, I'm 40, I'm a little older than you are, but I can tell you, especially from my experience in the military, there have been some very junior airmen that I've worked with who made incredible leaders, and also some very senior officers who were terrible leaders. And so, the age doesn't necessarily suggest anything about your experience and your wisdom. It's really just a number. I don't want anybody to think that just because you're so young, you couldn't help someone who's been more advanced in their field. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be asking them very similar questions, and they're going to be asking themselves very similar questions about, why am I doing this if I'm not being happy, right? And what else can I do that would give me that satisfaction that I'm looking for? So let's paint some more color on Evan a little bit. I wrote a networking book a couple of months ago, and it's really designed to get more at the who and not so much the what do you do. It's based on old school friendship journals, just asking you a bunch of questions. I want to ask you a few questions out of that, and then I have a special question from the last person I recorded a podcast with. Let's start with this one. Who or what is your source of inspiration?
Ooh. It's a great question. It's tough to say. I've got this, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of vision boarding, creating a vision board. Yeah. So on my vision board that I've created and tailored over the years, I've got one slide, which is just leaders that I respect. And there's a number of different people on there. And I kind of bounce around in terms of who I'm listening to at any given time or whatever. But, a couple folks that I've found a lot of inspiration from recently are people like Alex Hormozy. He's somebody who I've been following for a while, and I respect the way that he thinks and carries himself, and his success in business and all. I actually found him, a bit of my claim to fame here. I found him before he was big. I think he had like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube or something. And I was like, wow, this guy's awesome. Like, how do people not know about this guy? Sure enough, a couple months later, he was huge. Yeah, he's one guy that I really like. People like David Goggins. I'm big into health and fitness and stuff too. So, that kind of like, just get up and go to the gym sort of thing. I resonate with that. People like Andrew Huberman, he's somebody who I've been listening to a lot lately. All of his science-based tools for everyday life. One little strange one actually is a guy named Peter Levels. He's somebody that I don't think a lot of people have heard of. I'll mention him for that reason. He's a tech solopreneur guy. He just will find a problem and try and create some sort of tech solution to it, internet platform or something that he can just create all by himself. And he just takes on that entire process and builds as quickly as he can, and iterates quickly and creates, just a minimum viable product, puts it out there. Hey, do you like this? Okay, build it more. And he's been really successful at doing that. His kind of dirty approach to entrepreneurship and just getting in there and trying some way to figure it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I really respect that kind of approach, and he's somebody that I think about every now and then. But all these people I kind of use as like, okay, this situation that I'm in right now, the options that I have on my plate, or what I want to do or don't want to do, what would these people say about that thing, and how would they advise me? And usually a lot of them would probably come to the same conclusion. Maybe they'd have different ways of delivering the message. But I think their values and priorities kind of overlap enough to where it's given me some clear self-coaching, as I say, as I've kind of come about problems in my life.
That's a fantastic group of people to look up to. So knowing all that, maybe what's your favorite motto or tagline to live your life by?
Oh, that is a good question. I think I was asked the same question at work. We put together, a little like bio page for people to refer to however you start working with them or whatever. And it was your favorite quote. And I think the one that I put evidently this isn't extremely top of mind for me because I don't remember the exact words of it, and I'm kind of having to dig here to find it. But it's something along the lines of the only reason negative things are negative is because we perceive them as negative. It's all about your perception that decides whether something is positive or negative. Yeah, I think that's been a big guiding one for me. Whenever I have negative thoughts that enter my mind or like have a tendency to perceive a situation as negative, I try and pull myself out of that and understand that nothing is either good or bad. It just is. And we decide to see it as good or bad. I've found that's helped me a fair bit because there's always some bright side that you can find in every single dark moment, even the darkest. Yeah, I'd say that's probably been the most helpful quote or idea. I forget who said it, and again, I didn't even say it remotely right. There's a much more eloquent way to say it, but that's the general idea.
No, I like that. It reminds me, and I just had this discussion on LinkedIn with a few people over the last few days of this quote from Henry Ford, which quite simply says, "Whether you think you can or cannot, you are right." So it goes very much along those same lines. It's very much about our perception and our mindset. And if we have that negativity bias anyways, like we tend to, tend more towards the negative by default. And so it takes some action to think about things more positively. What are the benefits we can gain from this? What's my learning experience out of this challenging situation? So I love that. I mean, I think that's a fantastic mindset to live by. Maybe on a more personal level, what is a place that you haven't been to yet, but really want to visit?
Ooh, there's so many. I put together kind of I will. I put together a bit of a travel bucket list towards the end of last year, places that I wanted to go, and it was long. It was a lot of places, but I'm gonna say Singapore is probably up there. I'm a big fan of cities. I think I like cities a little bit more than nature, probably partially because I've just spent so much time in cities in my life and not quite as much in nature. Based on my experience in nature, I feel like I could learn to love it. There's a lot of pros to it, but it seems like an amazing city, very well developed, very clean, a lot of action going on there. The city-state dynamic seems really interesting. And just generally Southeast Asia, I think when I'd be over there, I'd be looking to bounce around and see a whole bunch of other places. It looks like a really exciting region, a lot of things going on down there. So that's it's the first one that comes to my mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think anybody has mentioned Singapore before. I mean, Bali has come up a few times, and I interviewed Jabana Mayrees, who's now an English teacher in Brunei. So she is in sort of the Southeast Asian realm now for life. I mean, she's living there. Definitely, it's an interesting part of the world. I don't know much about Asia, so I'm intrigued whenever people bring it up because I always hear like little things about it that are new and different that I just don't know anything about. All right, this is the oddest question, but it's my favorite one, which is why I keep asking it. Would you rather have a cat that barks or a dog that meows?
I'm going to say dog that meows. I feel like that's the best of both worlds, you know? Because a big downside with a dog is, the barking and you can't really control it. Now if somebody's just walking by on the street or there's a squirrel outside the window and it's kind of annoying, it's hard to deal with. So, but there's so many other pros to dogs that, if you can just eliminate that one con, I feel like they become much more attractive. But then at the same time, one of the pros of cats is that they don't bark. So if you add that in, then it's like, you're kind of taking that away. So yeah, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be the dog.
All right, fair enough. That's good. I like that. So one thing I started doing some time ago now, and I honestly, I stole this from Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast, but I have every guest ask the next guest a question, not knowing who that guest is or when we're even going to record. So this question was left to you by Eric Sardina, who's a fantastic life coach, by the way. When was the last time, and what was it that scared you to death, but you did it anyways?
Scared me to death. I guess I haven't been scared to death too many times. It's a little hard for me to think about it. But honestly, I'm going to say when I was with my friends in the summer of 2021 in BC. I have a couple of friends who are from Vancouver, and they invited me out to one of their cabins, which was loads of fun. And they have a cliff that's just across the lake that they get to. And I've never been. I'm honestly not great with water at all. I never enjoyed swimming lessons at all. Period. I always wanted to stay away from water. So, I'm kind of just doing it to please the group, but they were all cliff jumping. So, I was like, okay, I kind of got to do it. I can't not, right? I can't be that only guy who doesn't do it. And there's nothing intrinsically super, dangerous or anything about it. Though I guess it can be a little bit dangerous if you do it wrong. But anyways, I was pretty scared about that. It took me a long time standing at the top and getting the courage to jump off. And now I look back and I'm like, it's not a big deal to me now because I did it a few times there. But I think that was the last time where I was like, had this like gut wrenching feeling of pain when it's really in your face. You're like actually facing the physical challenge right in front of you versus something like jumping into entrepreneurship, right? That's challenging, but you're still looking at your environment and you're like, I'm still just, in my room here. It's still the same. So it's a different kind of fear that you get. But the gut wrenching pain fear that I felt in that moment is probably the last time that I experienced that. And did it anyways. And now look back and I'm like, well, it's funny. You kick yourself and you're like, there was no need to be scared or anything, right? But of course, everybody in that first scenario is going to be scared. There's no way around it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because you're jumping literally into the unknown. Once you do it, it's no longer the unknown. You don't have to be feared about it. You don't have that fear anymore. But the first time you do it and you don't know what to expect, you're literally jumping into the unknown. So I think that actually perfectly answers Eric's question. So now it's your turn to pay it forward. What question would you like to ask the next guest on the show?
Yeah, that's amazing. I like this. I'm going to say, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self any one piece of advice, what would it be? You can only give one, and your 18-year-old self is going to hear it and completely internalize it and act upon it. What would that be?
Awesome. That's a good question. I have to think about that one for myself. All right. Well, listen, Evan, this was awesome. If anybody
get a
wants
coach.
to reach out, yeah, right. Well, for sure. I mean, that goes without saying. Yeah. So if people want to reach out, speaking of coach, if people want to reach out, where can they reach out? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. That's where I'm most active. I'm posting there multiple times per week, engaging with people often. So that's the best place to find me. My name is Evan Sukman. Felix will probably have it written out somewhere here, but you can just search me on LinkedIn and you should be able to find me there. The second platform that you could probably find me is Instagram. That's where I'm second most active, I would say. I post a lot more stories of my day-to-day and things, me working out at the gym and random thoughts that come to my mind and things like that, on top of similar content that you'd see on LinkedIn. But I'm always available to receive any messages or any inquiries on both those platforms, or just happy to connect and share some wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I will leave all the descriptions to all your socials and contact information in the description below. So if anybody wants to find it more easily and reach out, they can. Evan, fantastic. Honestly, even for as young as you claim to be, you are a wealth of wisdom. So any final words to the audience? Anything else you want the world to know?
Yeah, I think I've shared just about everything. I mean, I'm sure if I were to dig down into some of my additional wisdom, there's something there. But no, I think that's about it. Felix, thank you so much for having me on. This is an excellent experience. This is my first time doing something like this, so I appreciate you having me and asking these very thoughtful questions. So yeah, kudos to you, my friend.
No, absolutely. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. This was awesome. I loved it. Honestly, like I said, for as young as you claim yourself to be, you have a lot of wisdom to share. And I think any client of yours will stand to benefit. So thanks again for being here. All right. I really hope you enjoyed that. The questions that I asked towards the end are from my new book, The Simple Networking Tool. It's a great book that redefines how we network. It's all about who someone is and not what they are. So if you want to get your own book, it's available on Amazon. If you want to learn more, there's videos about it here on YouTube. So you can check out this amazing new social science experiment. I'm so excited for it. If you do get a book and you do start your own, please let me know how it goes and what your experience is like. I'm working on the second edition and I want to make it the best one yet. So be sure to tag me, let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching.